Welcome everyone to the Things Around 8. Today we will talk about 2 threats that Russia has made to attack the United Kingdom with missiles and raise a red alert in Europe. In recent weeks, tensions between Russia, the United Kingdom and NATO have reached alarming levels. What began as a regional conflict in Ukraine has now taken on new contours, creating a much more serious and worrying scenario. But why did Russia decide to directly threaten the United Kingdom? Can we believe these threats, or are they just a bluff? To better understand, we need to go back in time a little, to a shocking statement coming from the Russians last Monday, May 7, 2024. In an impassioned speech, the Russian government threatened to attack British military targets inside and outside Ukraine if Ukrainian forces begin using British-supplied long-range missiles to target Russia. This threat came shortly after British Foreign Secretary David Cameron gave the go-ahead for Ukraine to use British weapons in self-defense. During a visit to Kyiv the previous week, Cameron said Ukrainian forces could use long-range British weapons to strike targets inside Russia. He said in an interview, "Just as Russia is attacking inside Ukraine, you can completely understand why Ukraine feels the need to make sure it is defending itself." In response, the Russian Foreign Ministry summoned British Ambassador Nigel Casey to Moscow, and warned him that if Ukrainian forces used British-supplied weapons to attack Russia, Moscow could retaliate against any UK military installations and equipment on Ukrainian territory and beyond. This exchange of threats marks a dangerous escalation in the conflict, with Russia signaling its willingness to expand the war beyond Ukraine's borders. But the provocations don't stop there. In response to comments from Western leaders including French President Emmanuel Macron and British officials, Russia announced plans for new nuclear weapons exercises near Ukraine's borders. And Putin didn't just stop at the speech. In response, he instructed his armed forces to conduct nuclear weapons exercises. As you can see, Russia did not take these comments well, seeing them as provocative and threatening to the country. Dmitry Peskov, Kremlin spokesman, further stated, "Not long ago, we witnessed another unprecedented stage in the escalation of tensions initiated by the French president and the British Foreign Secretary." In other words, he places Western leaders as the main culprits for the escalating conflict. For him, the statements made by Macron, as well as those by British and American officials who discussed the possible deployment of armed troops to Ukraine, are in practice placing NATO soldiers in front of Russian troops. On the other hand, Ukrainian officials dismissed the Kremlin statements, labeling them nuclear blackmail. Andriy Yusov, spokesman for Ukrainian intelligence, told national television that "We see nothing new here except the effect of the information and statements. Nuclear blackmail is a constant practice of the Putin regime. These nuclear exercises take place at a critical time, amid heightened diplomatic tensions between Russia and European countries, particularly Germany. This is because the country recently recalled its ambassador to Russia following accusations that Moscow was responsible for a cyber attack in 2023 against the Social Democratic Party of Germany. As Russia plans its nuclear exercises, NATO is also preparing for a possible confrontation. The alliance's ongoing military exercises, called Steadfast Defender, which have been taking place for the past 4 months, are evidence of this. NATO announced the start of the exercises in January, with 90,000 troops participating, focusing on rehearsing the deployment of American troops to reinforce European allies in countries bordering Russia and on the alliance's eastern border in the event of a conflict. The exercises, NATO's largest since the Cold War, are expected to continue until the end of this month. This attitude further increased tensions, with Russia warning of the enormous danger of sending NATO troops to Ukraine. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko said on Monday that such a move would be extremely dangerous and would take the conflict to a new level of confrontation. Grushko also accused NATO of already being involved in the conflict in Ukraine, providing weapons and training to Ukrainian forces. He said, "We see that NATO countries are increasingly and directly involved in this conflict, supplying Ukraine with weapons and training its military personnel. But this escalation of tensions is not limited to Ukraine alone." Recently, Russia warned that it is ready to launch an offensive against Poland, a NATO member country, if the alliance sends troops to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki issued a grim warning that a new world war could break out if Russia wins in Ukraine. He called on NATO to increase its support for Ukraine to avoid such a scenario. he said, if Ukraine falls, we will be facing a new world war. If Russia wins this war, Putin will not stop. As Russia and the West trade accusations and threats over the war in Ukraine, analysts warn that tensions have reached a critical point. Some experts compare the current situation to moments of crisis during the Cold War, such as the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, when the world came very close to nuclear war. The United States government even said it was seriously concerned with Russian nuclear discourse and atomic weapons exercises. As you can see, recent events paint a worrying picture of the current state of relations between Russia and NATO member countries. Threats of attacks, nuclear exercises, and the prospect of direct NATO involvement in the conflict in Ukraine take us dangerously closer to global war. In a world connected by words as much as weapons, every statement like this could be the spark that was needed to ignite this powder keg. Whether we will have a dangerous escalation in the conflict is still uncertain. But the stakes have never been higher. Thank you very much for watching the video. And now I invite you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so we'll see you more often, and so you'll be up to date with everything that's happening.